remember Oprah had this meme and she said, "Were you silent or were you silenced?" And I always ask myself, am I a failure or have I been failed? Right? So, right now I'm in a situation where I'm trying to get just a stable place to stay, a place that isn't mold infested with roaches, like all of us, right? I'm gonna tell you how I got here. So, I got here because of how I was born. I didn't have an easy life, you know, at all. My parents weren't together. They had a tumultuous relationship. They weren't married. My father was abusive to my mother. And because of that, you know, because of their own family history, they both were suffering in their own way. And because of that, it fractured the family that they had within themselves together. And because of that, I was not raised by either one of them. I was raised by my great grandmother. And because of that, I had a very horrible childhood. A lot of it was bullying by family, bullying by people I knew at school, people that didn't quite understand me. And it caused me to think a lot. And because I thought a lot, everybody would say, "Oh, you overanalyze everything. That's all you do." I didn't quite dance the way people in my family did. I didn't quite act the way people in my family did. And for a long time, I thought that I was adopted, even though I looked just like my mom and, my dad. But I felt misplaced. I felt alienated. So, I started going to school and started realizing, you know, what that meant for me. I started dealing with it on a social level. So, because of that, I've always felt this sense of alienation. Then I realized some things about myself. I realized, hey, I'm creative. If I think of something, I can do it, right? But when you're constantly dealing with bullying at school, bullying at home, people not understanding that your mind works differently and that the trauma is causing you to do things that don't make sense to other people on top of who you are already, people don't understand you. You make them uncomfortable. You ask too many questions. Why are you doing this? Why are you doing that? So you become a problem, right? You become the person that feels too much, knows too much, sees too much. You're the black sheep. You're the one that everybody wants to shut up. You doing too much. Or you're not enough. You're not this. You're not like them. You're not celebrated individually, right? So I dealt with that and I got into a religion that I thought could be the family that I wanted, be the place that I needed, be the safe space that I've always wanted. Got into that same dynamics. I started seeing like, oh wow, this isn't much different from what I left. And I realized that what certain people will do is when you see too much, you know too much, you think too much, you see past, you know, the play, the Truman Show, or what they call it, you see past the social dynamics, is all. And you start seeing the patterns. They don't want you to know that because then if you see that, then you see them. And the thing is, what I go through is what a lot of people go through. The person that results from that is different. And I understand that. I understand that I'm hurting, you're hurting. It displays in a different way. And these people hurt me. They threw me off emotionally. They knew that if they couldn't get here, they can get me here and destabilize me. And so I dealt with relationships that were tumultuous, harmful, and I started becoming something that I saw in the people that hurt me, the people that abused me in all kinds of ways, sexually, physically, emotionally, mentally. And I broke away from that, and I started seeing those things and those relationships ended. And because of how I started seeing things and how, I just, at that point, I was like, oh my God, what is my life? Because I couldn't make sense of anything. Everything was all, hitting me at one point, at one at a time, just back to back, just what I thought my life was, what I thought, anything and everything was. Existential crises, right? um I was just like, okay, well, I guess I deserve whatever's happening, and I was excommunicated from this cult. It was a Jehovah's Witnesses. I was excommunicated from them, and because of that, I thought that everything that was going on in my life, I deserved it. Right? That was that conditioning from when I was a child. If you do something, it's your fault. This, if anything happens to you, it's because you don't know any better. Even though I had no one to teach me anything. We're all human for the first time in our whole lives. We never stop learning until we die, right? And so when I would tell people, "Hey, I'm struggling," they would see my intelligence. They would see my talents and be like, "Oh, you don't look like that's what you went through," because I learned from a very young age. Act like everything's good so that no one can know what's going on inside your house, because you, as your existence, cannot bring out the guilt in someone else, what they're doing to you, right? I'm honestly surprised that I have not become the monster or the angry person, because I told myself when I was 10 years old, around this time, after I had like a really bad day, um, and I was just crying, I told myself, I said, I promised myself I won't become the people that hurt me. And whenever I would get to the point where I was that way, I would pull back and I would hurt myself because I'm like, it's your fault. Not realizing that I'm reacting to the systemic failures that have happened towards me. So I get out of that cult, and I meet a horrible person who's like the final boss. At least I thought at this time of everything that I've ever dealt with, thinking, yeah, I deserve it. And I stuck with them, and I felt that this wasn't right, but I didn't know what I was in at the time. I didn't know what I was being coerced to do. I did not know what it means when someone traffics you. I did not know that, right? So I left it. I was like, I gotta get out of here. My mother was telling me, she was like, you gotta leave, you gotta get. Everybody was kept telling me, stay away from this person. And I was just like, I hit ground zero again. And I'm realizing it's a pattern. Whenever I hit ground zero, everything implodes, and then I see a new level of myself, right? So I left, and, you know, I went to another location. I moved. Thought I was safe. Thought I could trust one person, not realizing you can't trust anybody because nobody's telling me this. I'm coming from being sheltered. There's one way of life that I know. I don't know a lot, because I'm being sheltered. I don't know what any of this means. I don't know that this is a juxtaposition, like being ahead in a lot of ways and being stunted in a lot of other ways. I'm not learning. I don't know. I'm learning some things and still not learning other things. It's like arrested development, regression, and you keep moving forward at the same time. And so when I learned what that was, I was just like, oh my God. And I had to sit with that. And I had a wonderful therapist help me to, you know, get a lot of things out somatically, right? So because of that, I just, I started learning, I started creating. I started getting back to all the things that people told me I couldn't do. You can't sing, you can't dance, you can't act. And I joined this program. Program had the same thing, same elitism, same gatekeeping. And I dealt with that, right? I was like, oh, it's in that too. And through that though, I saw what I was doing on my own, what I've always been doing on my own. At this new location that I was at, right? I saw everything I could be. I saw everything I was. I saw who I am. I saw Kyra. And I was like, wow, this is who I am. I started learning all the skills that the therapist was teaching me. Shout out to you, man. If you know who you are, shout out to you. And I learned to love myself. I was like, oh my God, I finally love myself. Started singing out loud. Started singing songs. Started doing things in public that people said, oh, you can't do. Didn't even care what kind of cultural vacuum I was in. I was going to be me, however that was. And then things started escalating. This person found out, the trafficker found out where I was, found my location. And from there, I was like, okay, they know where I am for sure, 100% now. They had been cyber stalking me for 2 years after I had went away. I had escaped from them and just tried to move somewhere that was further away, but still close to the people that supported me, not realizing that their support was fractured and limited too, because we're all going through the same pain. This is how trauma is, you know? So because of that, I decided I was like, let me leave. So, I had my voucher, I was in a program, because I'm going through these things, I didn't realize, it was affecting my health, and not just mentally, not just mentally, but physically. Now I'm starting to get chronic issues to the point that I can't even talk, I can't even walk, can't even move. My body's shutting down, you know, dealing with chronic conditions because of what's going on with me. So I'm still trying. And it got to the point where I'm just like, you know what? I have to leave. And I always wanted to. It was this video that I used to watch by Hilary Duff. And I remember her saying, you know, people talk about me, they think they know everything, but they don't know anything about me. Like, I just want to go out and I want to explore it. I want to go out and just be anywhere in the world. And that's what I've always wanted. I just never had a home. And I was just like, if I can't have a home, my home will be with me. And I'll just explore the world, right? So I was like, you know what? I got to leave. I can't stay here. It's too much tied to the space. I have to leave everything and everyone that I know because there's no one here anyway. All my friends were tied up in the cult. All my social connections were tied up in the cult that I had to leave. And I'm glad that I left because all that facilitated me becoming closer to who I thought I was. And I never forgot. There was always a small piece of me that kept going forward. But now I unlocked it and I was like, oh, this is who I am, right? People always misunderstood it. Oh, she's crazy. She's this, she's that. I was just highly, highly, extremely traumatized and activated and just never had a chance. One explosion after another. And this final explosion, I thought was going to be my way out, right? Saw people touch my case. Saw people re-traumatize me as I'm trying to escape the trauma. See people, me telling people, hey, this isn't working for me. I appreciate what you're doing. This isn't working for me. And see them still do what they want to do and still harm me, exposing my information. People that's from nonprofits, doing the bare minimum or just giving me the resources, but not helping me think because now my brain is shutting down because I'm just like, why do I keep going through this? I want different. I want to learn. I want more, and I want to help other people because I don't want anybody to feel what I'm feeling. I still have humanity. I still have care. I still have consideration, respect. I never got upset at anybody that was doing these things because I saw that and I knew why. And I was just like, even if they do something, even if they hate me, if they just do the thing, I can keep going. So finally, I showed people, gave them my information, said, hey, this is what I'm going through, never lied, gave them more information than they ever asked for because I'm like, I'm not lying to you. I'm not afraid of my past. I'm not afraid